Hello and welcome to the Run Testers. My name's Nick and this is our full review of the Asics Megablast. So the Megablast is an all-new shoe from Asics that launched at the same time as the Sonic Blast, a plated trainer that also uses the FF Turbo squared foam that you'll find in the midsole of the Megablast, which is an unplated training shoe that has quite a lot of similarities to the Asics Superblast 2. One of those similarities being that it's a very expensive shoe. It costs $225 in the US and £210 in the UK. Another similarity of the Superblast is that it's a very high stack shoe. It stands 46mm high at the heel, that drops to 38 at the forefoot for an 8mm drop. But despite that stack height, it's a very lightweight shoe. It weighs just 241 grams or 8.5 ounces in my UK size 9, which is a US 10. So the foam in the midsole is a very lightweight material, which means that the shoe can be very light despite having a high stack and a pretty wide base. When it comes to the design of the shoe, you've got an engineered mesh upper. It's pretty open in the front there, a little bit see-through, and has breathed pretty well for me throughout testing. Fairly thin tongue, a little bit of padding around the back of the shoe there, but not too much. Obviously, Asics is keen to keep the weight of the shoe down, so the upper's not as padded as you'll find on daily trainers like the Gel Nimbus or the Nova Blast. And the midsole is entirely made from FF Turbo squared. This is Asics' most energetic foam, the most energy returning foam in the lineup. It's a resilient foam with a fairly firm feel that really gives you, a lot of bounce, but has a little bit of sink in as well. It's a balanced material designed to create a very versatile ride. And then you've got Asics grip rubber on the outsole, pretty good coverage at the forefoot, 2 strips at the back here. There is a lot of exposed foam in the midfoot of the shoe here, but it's pretty hard wearing stuff. I've not seen too much wear myself after 100 miles in the Megablast.
So when it comes to fit, I ran in a UK 8.5, US 9.5, which would be my regular size in Asics shoes. And overall, I found the fit was largely okay. There's an awful lot of padding in the heels back here, even though you've got like a race style sort of design. And that makes a really good hold and comfort back there in the heel package. The midfoot I found secures really nicely with these lace lock style laces. So all of that and that sort of back section all held nicely, really secure, was happy with that. The only real issue I had was up front in the toe box. The taper on these is really quite dramatic, more so certainly than the Superblast, which is a more roomy shoe in the forefoot overall. That sharp taper leads to, for me at least, a lack of clearance on the outside edge of my little toes, and I suffered some rubbing on those little pinkies. It was really noticeable on my runs when I was going over an hour, and it would definitely be a worry for me on runs over 2 hours. Fear here is if I went half a size up, I think there's a danger I might be swimming in the shoe, but I think definitely if you have wider feet, you'd be smart to try half a size up, or if you want a fit that feels as roomy and forgiving as the Superblast in this section. But beyond that little pinch point, I found the upper was really nice and light and airy and breathable, a bit more racy than the Superblast. Generally, I did like the fit. It's just that little taper. If that wasn't there, they'd almost be spot on.
So the fit for me in the Megablast, I'm a size 8 in the UK. This is a size 8, which is a normal running shoe size that I use in the UK. Quite spacious shoe. There's quite a lot of space before my big toe in this, more than I normally expect in a shoe in a size 8. It's probably a little bit longer than a lot of shoes, which is similar to what I've experienced with the Superblast 2. It's also plenty of room around the sides of the feet, and the midfoot is absolutely fine for me. I've got fairly average width feet, and I find this to be quite a roomy shoe from the forefoot and the midfoot. Which isn't always the case with Asics, but it's absolutely fine for me. And there's plenty of nice padding around the back, and a really thin tongue, but I didn't have any issues with that. So overall, I found it was very easy to get a nice lockdown fit in it. It was very, very comfortable, and I'd definitely say it's my UK size 8 in this shoe.
Comes to fit of the Asics Megablast, it's been good for me in my normal running shoe size, the same size I use across the Asics range. I would say within the Asics range it's probably a little bit less roomy around the toes than something like the Nimbus. The fit is more in line with maybe something like the Superblast or the Metaspeed range, and yeah, that worked very well for me. I had a good hold around the heel and midfoot. The upper's been very comfortable for me throughout testing. I took the Megablast away for a week of running in the Canary Islands where it was pretty hot, and yeah, the upper breathed really well, dried quickly, no concerns at all about the fit. I'd stick to your normal size. So I've done a lot of running in the Asics Megablast over the past few weeks. I've racked up about 160k, 100 miles in the shoe in that time. During marathon training, I've been doing pretty high mileage weeks, and one of those weeks I was away on holiday, and the Megablast was the only running shoe I took. And as a result, I've done a really wide range of runs in it. Everything down to fairly short reps during interval sessions, to a 15-mile tempo run, lots of long, easy stuff as well, and easy to steady progression runs. Really, the full gamut of a training week. I've done it all in the Megablast, and it's impressed me pretty much every time. fine. Versatility is certainly the biggest strength, I think, of the shoe. It really does work well for such a wide range of runs. It's a pretty impressive combination of comfort, weight, responsiveness. It's all the kind of things we said about the Superblast 2, but with the added bonus of being a little bit lighter than the Superblast and slightly less kind of boat-like. Like, I like the Superblast a lot. I thought it was a really good shoe, but for my kind of running, as a high-cadence runner, as a heel striker, I sometimes felt the back of the Superblast just a bit too big for me, and although I really enjoyed running in it, it didn't feel the peppiest for faster stuff. That's still a bit true of the Megablast. It is still a fairly blocky shoe and a big shoe, but it's got a smoother transition from the heel, I find, than the Superblast, and the new foam in the midsole does have a bit more pop to it, a bit more energy return, and as a result, I think it's a slightly better shoe at those faster paces, and still really, really good for easy stuff, long stuff, that kind of thing. The foam is fairly stiff, fairly firm, but it's got a bit more flexibility than a plated shoe, and I've really enjoyed cruising around in it at all kinds of paces. So when it comes to the runs I've done in it, I'd say when it comes to the really fast stuff, like interval sessions, it does it pretty well. I definitely still think leaner shoes would do it better. Things like the Adidas Evo SL, or more stripped back plated shoes. That this is still a pretty big shoe. Like, I did enjoy running fast in it, and it's definitely a thing it does well. But you still got that slightly big feeling with this shoe compared to, like I say, some of the slightly more leaner shoes on the market. Where I loved it most, I would say, it was on a 15-mile. A kind of tempo-ish run. I was doing 50 miles at 6-minute miling and just cruising along, and it just felt great throughout that run. Like a really controlled effort. The shoe felt really cruisy. It certainly had the performance level of a plated super trainer. Like, I've done that run quite this year in the Nike Zoomfly 6. A very similar feel to that. A shoe I rate very highly. Had a similarly enjoyable experience on that run in the Asics Megablast. The only time I haven't really felt good in it at any point on runs was on some slightly uneven trails, like a very short section of trails on a run, because it's a big platform and quite a wide one, and I was kind of catching things and getting moved from side to side. But other than that, it's been great on every run. You've got a pretty wide base here. It's certainly quite stable, and I think that's an area where it does excel compared to some of the really impressive all-rounder shoes that we're going to talk about later. They're a lot cheaper than the Megablast. Things like the Evo SL or even the Puma Velocity Nitro 4. You've got a wider base here, and it's a shoe that you feel a bit more relaxed and confident taking out for easy stuff because it is a bit more stable as a result. Also, been pretty impressed with the durability of the shoe. Like, I haven't really put a mark on it after 100 miles, which has included a few stints on the trails, both here and abroad, and none of the rubber's wearing at all. The exposed foam's holding up really well. The foam has felt better over time in the midsole, I would say. It was probably a little bit stiff out of the box, but it's just eased up a bit and got a bit bouncier, and I think you're going to get really good durability out of the shoe, which is definitely important given how high the price is here. So in terms of my running experience, I really can't fault the Megablast. It's been very enjoyable for pretty much every kind of run. You're still not the absolute best at speed just because of its kind of size, but it still performs like a plated trainer in those sessions. So it's just probably a bit more personal preference that I prefer a more lean shoe, maybe a slightly lower shoe, a bit more nimble around the heel for that kind of run. But when I have run fast in the Megablast, it's performed well, and it's been great for cruising around in as well.
Okay, so the Megablast. Now, we've talked a lot in the past about the Superblast and the Superblast 2, so comparisons with those shoes is probably going to be quite obvious, and it's probably the easiest way to explain this shoe, to be honest. I think if you are looking at this shoe, it's quite an expensive shoe. If you're looking at this shoe, you're probably looking at it as a newer version of the Superblast, or looking for what it brings that's an improvement on the Superblast 2. And in many ways, it is very similar to the Superblast 2. It is a shoe that is very well designed for picking up the pace. It's a shoe that cruises really, really nicely. So if you're out doing a marathon paced longer run or something like that, it works really, really well. And it also picks up the pace quite nicely. So I think the bit that the things that you need to know about this shoe, if you're comparing it to the Superblast 2, is that it is very slightly softer. Not massively. I think I've read somewhere that it's around 10% softer than the foam in the Superblast 2, but it's not massively noticeable for me. It feels very similar to the foam in the Superblast 2, and it's also probably slightly more aggressive as well for me, which, when it works alongside that, the fact that it's slightly lighter, it makes it a bit more of a versatile shoe for me than the Superblast 2. The Superblast 2 is probably the perfect shoe for going out and training longer sessions at a nice consistent pace. So you're going out doing a 28k marathon run, training run, and you want to run it at a pace that's close to your marathon pace. That's a great shoe for it. It's quite wide, it's quite stable, it's got a lovely smooth transition, and it really helps. It's really conducive to maintaining a consistent pace. Whereas I think the Megablast can do that. I just think it's a bit more versatile. It's definitely a little bit poppier. It's very slightly more aggressive. It's not by no means an aggressive fast shoe, but it definitely feels it's you can pick up the pace, you can accelerate a little bit quicker in this shoe. And I'd also say that it's probably on a par of, if not a little bit better than the Superblast 2 when it comes to easier runs as well. It just feels a little bit more fun. The midsole in the Superblast 2 is great, but it's very smooth. It's not necessarily a really bouncy foam, whereas this is quite bouncy. There's a bit of energy return in it, which works alongside everything else I've said. It just makes it a very poppy, nippy shoe, and definitely one that you could use for a lot more. I think it's be good for interval sessions, good for faster shorter sessions, good for fast long sessions. It's a very, very versatile shoe that's very enjoyable to run in, and definitely a shoe that is worth picking up if you want something to tick off a lot of runs and you do a lot of different sorts of runs. I still wouldn't say it's up there. It's as a race shoe, which it's not designed to be a race shoe, but some people might be looking at it for that, and it might be okay for certain types of runners. But I think for me, it's definitely a shoe that really sits into that, just underneath race shoe for all those different training sessions that you're doing, whether it is long, comfortable runs at a slightly faster pace or really fast interval sessions. So really impressed with the shoe. I think it's a nice progression of what we've seen from Asics so far, and it's well worth picking up, even though it's quite expensive. I think it's a really, really good shoe, and I've been very much enjoying testing it. Also, the outsole is much like what you'll have experienced in other Asics shoes. It's this Asics grip that goes across the front and the back. There's not loads of it, and there is quite a lot of exposed midsole foam, which does feel a little bit delicate, but it's fairly thick rubber, so I think it will last a while. So not too bad, but it's a really grippy outsole, so it's pretty good if you're running in different conditions.
Well, to the run test then. In testing, I've spent a solid week in the Megablast since it landed. I've clocked close to 50 miles on a mix of road and river paths. I've done 2 10-milers, one of those where I did like a 6-mile progression sandwich in the middle, where I moved sort of from easy pace steadily up to around 5k pace. I did a 10k with a 19-minute 5k in the middle of that to test the upper pace as well. I've done some easy plodding hour-long runs as well. Now, straight out of the box, when I was moving at my slower pace, sort of recovery or warm-up style, I wasn't 100% convinced by the Megablast. I found the stack incredibly soft and a bit mushy. It's a bit squidgy. There's a lot of movement underfoot. I think that creates a certain amount of instability in the shoe, which I really felt further up my chain in my knees. And it reminded me a lot of sort of how I initially felt at the very first time I put on the very original Nova Blast. A bit like the Hoka Skyward X as well. Just a bit out of control and a bit like that soft foam was dragging me down. Now, the longer I ran in them and the more I ticked up the gears, the less I battled that sort of slightly sludgy wobble. And there's a pace and a form where I personally sort of engage the shoe and benefit from the bounce of the midsole. There's loads of that bounce. You know, where you get the energy that you put in, you kind of get it back. So on my progression runs, the sweet spot was really the kind of middle 2 or 3 miles hovering around marathon, sort of half marathon pace. Now, I didn't really find they had enough to excel at the sort of fastest paces when I was sort of pushing to 5Ks. Still just wasn't giving me as much as I get from a different shoe. And then when I dropped back to easy, the soft and sinkiness returned. I just felt like I was battling the shoe again, a bit more than I would like. The lack of stability was a bit of an issue for me. I think that super compliant foam allows for a lot of movement underfoot in the sort of footbed. But bear in mind that I will tend to lean towards a stiffer, snappier ride than the super soft. If you really like pillowy softness, then the Megablast may well be your dream come true, because it is lively, it is energetic, and it is super soft. Now, when I was moving around marathon pace, it was a whole different story, swapping sort of sluggishness for a really light, lively, bouncy energy that felt smooth thanks to the rocker, lighter and I think sprightlier than the Superblast as well. One last thing, I'm never really that bothered by the colours of shoes. I tend to run in anything, but I think this one at the moment only comes in white, or this sort of wild purple pink mashup, and I think it's somewhat limited. I've worn a lot of shoes to the school gates over the years, but these are the first time I've actually got some comments and some strange looks whilst I was wearing them, and they weren't really good comments or good looks. So, you know, subtle they are not. Some people might love it. It's a bit tricky for kind of 47-year-old dad to pull off at the school gates. So yeah, I'd like more colours, please, Asics.
Okay, my verdict on the Asics Megablast. I think it's a great development of the shoes that Asics already got, including the Superblast 2. I think it's a little bit more versatile than the Superblast 2. I think it's a great shoe to have if you're looking to do lots of different training sessions, whether you want a nice, fun, easy run, whether you want a long run, training shoe for your marathon training, your half marathon training, or whether you're going out and do intervals. I don't think it's by no means the best interval shoe out there. I think there's shoes that are probably a little bit better at picking up the pace, and it's pretty light as well. It's not massively lighter than shoes like the Superblast 2, but it is a bit lighter, which does make it a little bit more versatile for those different types of sessions. So great shoe, very versatile shoe, very enjoyable, fun shoe. And yeah, it's got a lot going for it. I really, really like this. I think it's going to be a very popular shoe. And I think the changes or the developments in this shoe against some of the other shoes from Asics, like the Superblast 2, are really, really good. And it's definitely a slight improvement in a lot of ways.
Verdict then, and the Asics Megablast is undoubtedly a good shoe that builds on the Superblast with the lightness, an energy added, a raciness that definitely gives it a dose of added marathon and half marathon training and racing potential. I think a lot of runners, particularly those who love a big stack with sort of super soft bouncy ride, are going to really love this shoe. Though if you need stability, I also think that this could be a risky investment if you're going to use it for the slower paces, because the flip of that more sort of fun foam, I think, is a lot of wobble when you're moving slower. So I'm kind of in two minds about this shoe. To me, it runs very differently depending on your pace. At a slow and easy or sort of top end fast pace, I find it struggles a bit. It's too soft for me when I'm landing slower and heavier. I get loads of sort of road taming kind of sink from that big compliant midsole, but not enough return. When it comes to 5k pace, I think there are better shoes out there as well that I'd choose to do those sort of really sort of all out or faster training sessions. The Endorphin Speed 5, the Sonic Blast actually I think is a better shoe for it. The Rebel V5, even the Hoka Rocket X3, the Mac X, those shoes definitely I would choose over this. But then when you hit the pace sweet spot with this shoe, which I find is around kind of marathon pace, it's excellent. It's smooth, it's energetic, it's an excellent road eater that will clip along happily for miles and miles and miles. I can see some people at least racing a marathon in these as a non-plated option and find there's enough performance to do that. It reminded me somewhat of like a Brooks Hyperion Max 3 for that. It's kind of cushioned and it gives energy when you go at it. But however, my instinct tells me that as a shoe to add to my rotation, I'd probably choose the Sonic Blast first over these. For most of the runs that I would do, or most of the runs that the Mega Blast would cater for, I think the Sonic Blast would be a better choice for me. Though I can happily run easy in a firmer, stiffer, snappier shoe. I don't tend to need that big trampoline softness even when I'm moving slower. I actually prefer something that returns a bit faster even on tired legs. But if you really like that real kind of sink and you want the bounce and you're happy with a bit of movement, I think the Mega Blast is definitely a good shoe. It's pricey. You know, can you do everything in this one shoe for your training and racing for a marathon? I'm not sure I can. Some people may be able to. If you can do that, then the 200 and odd pounds that you're going to pay for it, you know, could be an investment in a one shoe, you know, rotation killer kind of way, getting just rid of all of those other shoes that you might have in the mix for training and racing for a marathon. It can't do that for me. And therefore, I think, you know, when I look at how much it costs for someone like me, I don't think it represents great value. I think I can get better from other shoes. So yeah, it's a middling from me. It's like not a thumbs up, it's not a thumbs down. I love it when I'm moving at marathon pace. I'm not so sure outside of that. And then when you throw in the price, I think it just feels a little bit expensive for just having it for those kind of runs.
So verdict on the Asics Megablast. Like, I really do love this shoe. I think it's a very good running shoe all round. I've loved running in it. Every kind of run I've done in it has been a joy, and I actually like it a bit more than the Superblast 2, which I always thought was a really good shoe, an impressive shoe, the one that just didn't quite cater to my preferences. And the Megablast does that a little bit better by having a slightly smoother heel transition and being a bit lighter and a little bit poppier. And yeah, works really well for me across a range of runs. It's certainly a shoe that I'd love to have in a rotation to do everything, but the big stumbling block here is certainly the price, because I think it is just too expensive to really recommend highly the Megablast. I think you're going to get a very durable shoe here, so that will recoup some of the cost, but then there are really good shoes like the Adidas Evo SL, which are not only a lot cheaper, but have proved very durable in my testing so far as well. So while I love the Megablast, I think you're going to be able to find better value out there for sure, not least in just the Superblast 2, which is a great shoe. I don't like, you know, quite as much as the Megablast, but it's still somehow cheaper. And in particular, there's this band of shoes that are around that kind of £150 mark or less, where you've got things like the Adidas Evo SL, which is a phenomenal, lightweight, fast training shoe that's good for easy runs as well. You know, it's not as cushioned and stable as the Megablast, but it is a better performer at speed, I would say. It's Puma Velocity Nitro 4, another narrow shoe that's maybe not the most stable, but a really comfortable daily trainer with a great foam in the midsole that responds well to a range of paces as well. The New Balance Rebel V5 is a wide, stable shoe, but a very light one, even lighter, you know, than the Megablast. Like, the foam in that is not as good as the Megablast in terms of the amount of response you get there. there, and I didn't like it quite so much for speed, the Rebel, but a hell of a lot cheaper. Another really good shoe. Even the Asics Blast, which is more of a cushioned, easy shoe than the Megablast. It's not as versatile, but again, a lot cheaper, big, stable, great daily trainer with a pretty good foam in the midsole. And all of those shoes are coming in at a price, but you can kind of almost buy two of them for the price of the Megablast. And if you did just pick up the Puma Velocity Nitro 4 and the Adidas Evo, or even the Rebel and then the Adidas, if you want that wide, stable shoe like the Rebel in there for easy days, then you're getting two shoes for the price of one, and they're really, really good shoes all round. And then if you go a bit more expensive to really versatile shoes that can match the Megablast performance across a range of runs, plated trainers, again, they're considerably cheaper. The Hoka Mach X2, X3 we're testing at the moment, the Nike Zoomfly 6, Saucony Endorphin Speed 5. The Asics Sonic Blast I don't like as much as the Megablast, I would say. I found that a bit slappy with the plate in the midsole with this foam, and ended up feeling a bit too firm for me, and that feeling hasn't gone away even with quite a lot of miles on the shoe, so I do prefer the Megablast to that. But Zoomfly 6, fantastic shoe, really impressive performer across a range of speeds, cheaper. Hoka Mach X3, X2 the same. So it's just a bit too much, I think, is the problem here. And while it is a special shoe, I think actually on merit it probably lives up to its price tag in many ways. Like, it's a really durable shoe, a really versatile one, but there are loads of amazing shoes available for less that can match its performance, which just means that the Megablast is one that I wouldn't rush out and buy, as much as I have enjoyed running in it. I've racked up loads of miles, and I'll probably continue to rack up those miles, but no running shoe is launched in a vacuum, and you have to consider what else is on the market, and there are just fantastic shoes available for a lot less. And so yeah, really good shoe. Interesting to see what happens with Asics in the future, whether the Superblast 3 will be a shoe that maybe brings FF Leap, the foam from the Metaspeed Ray, into a training shoe and has a much softer feel as a result, or how the Megablast and Superblast will be positioned going forward. But yeah, brilliant shoe. Maybe it will pop up in sales one day. It never really happened with the Superblast, did it? I think people just bought it. So, and if you do buy this, you are going to love it. I think it is a really good shoe, can do so much, but yeah, a bit expensive. I'd look at some other stuff first. That's our review of the Asics Megablast. Let us know what you think in the comments below. Please do like and subscribe, ring the little bell, and we'll see you next time.